The Midnight Masquerade. Every Halloween, the moors at the edge of town were shrouded in a thick, creeping mist. The villagers knew better than to wander there after dark. Whispers spoke of restless spirits and shadowed figures that moved through the fog. But those who dared to listen closely could sometimes hear the faint strains of music, a haunting melody that carried on the wind. It was said that on Halloween night, the Midnight Masquerade would appear, a ghostly ball where the past, present, and future intertwined. Alice had always been drawn to the tales, captivated by the mystery of it all. But they were just stories, until she received an invitation. It arrived in the evening, slipped under her door. The parchment was old, the ink dark, and it read, "Alice, you are cordially invited to the Midnight Masquerade. Follow the music and glimpse what lies ahead, but beware, for the dance reveals what you hide." Her fingers trembled as she held the invitation, her heart racing. She had no idea who sent it or how they knew her name, but something deep within her whispered that this was an opportunity she couldn't ignore, a chance to understand the longing and restlessness she'd felt for so long. As the moon rose, full and bright, she dressed in a simple gown, donning a mask she had found tucked away in her attic, one she'd never seen before. It was black, adorned with silver threads that glinted like stars. She wrapped herself in a velvet shawl and set off into the mist, following the distant, ethereal music that called to her. The moors were cold and silent, the mist swirling around her feet. She walked for what felt like hours, the sound of the music growing louder with each step, until she emerged into a clearing. There she found the Midnight Masquerade. The ball was unlike anything she had ever seen. Spirits and shadows twirled in elegant dances, their gowns and suits shimmering in the moonlight. Lanterns hung suspended in the air, their glow illuminating faces hidden behind masks of every shape and color. The air was filled with laughter, music, and the whisper of secrets. The guests moved like a dream, graceful and ghostly, as if they belonged to a world just beyond her reach. Alice hesitated at the edge of the clearing, her heart pounding. She felt like an intruder in this strange, beautiful place, but the invitation had been for her. She took a deep breath, stepped forward, and joined the dance. A masked figure in a red suit offered her his hand, and she accepted. As they twirled across the dance floor, he whispered, "Do you seek to know your future, Alice?" She looked into his eyes, hidden behind a mask of gold. "I'm not sure," she admitted, "but I've always felt lost, like there's something more I'm meant to find." The figure's grip tightened, and he spun her gracefully, the world around her blurring. "The dance reveals what we hide," he said. "But beware, sometimes the truth is more than we can bear." As they danced, she noticed the faces around her. They seemed familiar, and yet she couldn't place them. The more she looked, the more they felt like memories, fragments of her life reflected back at her. The figure in red released her, and she found herself face to face with another masked partner. This time, a woman in a green gown. "Do you recognize me, Alice?" the woman asked, her voice soft and sorrowful. Alice's eyes widened as she saw the curve of the woman's lips, the way her eyes glinted beneath the mask. It was her own reflection, dressed in green, as she had been years ago, when she had once loved someone deeply and let them slip away. "You loved him," the woman whispered, "but you were afraid, and so you let go." The music swelled, and Alice felt a pang of regret. She had tried to bury those memories, to convince herself that it had been the right choice, but now, faced with this reflection of herself, she felt the weight of all the what-ifs she had carried. As she moved on, the faces became clearer, each one a piece of her past, an old friend she had lost touch with, a mentor she had disappointed, and the shadowed figure of her mother, who had passed before she could say goodbye. Each step she took, each dance she shared, pulled her deeper into the past she had tried to forget. The music shifted, growing more intense, and the dancers around her quickened their pace. She felt herself being drawn into a whirlwind of emotions: longing, regret, love, and fear. The clock above the ballroom ticked closer to midnight, its chimes echoing through the air. Her final partner appeared, a man in a mask of black and silver, his eyes familiar, filled with warmth and sadness. As they danced, she felt the truth pulling at her, the realization she had been avoiding for so long. "It's you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "The one I lost." He nodded, and for a brief moment the mask flickered, revealing the face she had loved so deeply. "I waited for you, Alice, but you chose fear over love. You chose to walk away." Tears pricked at her eyes. "I didn't know what to do. I was afraid of losing myself." He twirled her gently, his grip firm but tender. "And now you wander through life, haunted by the choices you didn't make. But tonight, you have a chance to see your future or to stay lost in the past." The clock struck, the first chime of midnight reverberating through the ballroom. Alice felt the pull of the moment, the decision that lay before her. She could leave now, escape before the final chime, or she could stay and face the truth of her fears, her regrets, and the future she had avoided. As the second chime rang out, the man's grip on her hand grew fainter. The other dancers slowed, their ghostly forms watching her, waiting. She knew that if she stayed, she would have to confront everything she had hidden from. But if she left now, she would continue her life of half-truths and unfulfilled desires. "I can't run anymore," she whispered, her voice steadying. "I want to face it." The man smiled, his eyes softening. "Then face it with courage, and the future will be yours." The clock struck its final chime, and the ballroom dissolved into a swirl of mist and shadows. The masked figures faded, and Alice found herself standing alone in the clearing, the fog lifting. The moonlight shone down, illuminating her path back to the village. As she walked away, she felt a weight lift from her chest. The masquerade had revealed her hidden desires, her fears, and the truth of the love she had lost. But it had also given her a choice: to let go of the past and embrace the future. The music faded into the night, and as she looked back, the Midnight Masquerade vanished into the mist. Alice knew that next Halloween it would return, waiting for those who sought the truth. But for now, she had found her own, and as she stepped back onto the path, she felt the promise of a new beginning.
I hope you enjoyed the story. Like and subscribe for more. Thank you for wandering the foggy paths of Mystmoor with us. Stay curious, but beware what you may uncover in the mist. Farewell, brave souls, from Mystmoor Mysteries.